Dr. Charles Ivy Williamson and Dr. Ivy Williamson. One of those gentlemen happens to be my father, Charles Ivy, and one of them is my brother, Ivy Williamson. Two people that I highly respect. Though my father's passed away, my brother is still living. I seek his counsel quite often. I have the utmost respect for physicians. I've said this many times on the podcast. I'll say it again 2 or 3 times in this podcast. I'll say it on other podcasts. I have the utmost respect for what they do and the lifestyle a lot of them have because of how busy they are and the lives they save. And the only time I ever have a challenge is why I actually started this podcast. It's the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast, dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness. And ladies and gentlemen, I think too many times I am dispelling myths that are being told to you by physicians, and today is no different. Dispelling the myth of long-distance running doing damage to your face today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for tuning in today and checking out what we're talking about today, dispelling yet another myth that's being put out there by a physician about exercise. As I said in the intro, I do this too many times and have to do this too many times. And it really irks me, and you're going to hear me get a little upset today about this. But before we do that, I'll let you know how to get in touch with us. The people that I'm talking about today know how to get in touch with me if they have any questions about what I'm covering. You can reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's my email address. You can contact me at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Our website, which is personaledgefitness.com, and our Facebook page, which is Personal Edge Fitness. And hit me up on Twitter at Team PE if you have any questions dealing with this podcast or any others, or as I've said on our what's becoming an incredibly popular section of the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast, and that is the Ask Katie section. So if you have any questions for her, you can contact us at those numbers or reach out to me through those online devices if need be. Let's dive head first into this. I'm going to make it clear to the general public, and I want to make it clear to the medical community that I have the utmost respect for physicians. I think too many times in our field, and as with many others, I know it's popular in the construction field that contractors don't get along with architects. I'm sure that things like that exist in other fields. Too many times I hear personal trainers that bash medical personnel, especially physicians, and I just think that's absurd. It makes me mad. I actually had a trainer who told me one time that all a doctor does is dispense pills. That's it. They don't know anything about health. And I just thought that was absurd. I'd argue with that person as much as I've argued with anybody in the health field. And you see that a lot with weekend certified personal trainers that think they know far more than they actually do. And so when I get into a topic like this, I'm always afraid of being lumped into that group of people that belittle an entire field, whether it's the training field or the medical field or dietitians or what have you. That makes me so mad. But what angers me as much as one field bashing another field is when somebody in, let's say, the personal training field starts giving internal medicine advice or giving, podiatry advice that they're not qualified to give. Opinions are fine. I understand that, as long as you make it abundantly clear that it's your opinion. But what we have in the health field is a general acceptance that the top of the food chain are physicians, somebody with an MD or a DO. And I get it. I understand that. There are many times that I seek counsel from physicians on particular situations that I'm dealing with. Not just orthopedics. I mean, of course, that's something we see a lot of, and a lot of orthopedics that we talk to, a lot of physical therapists that we talk to. We've got an ACL tear that comes in, and somebody's doing rehab and working with us. A lot of times we'll reach out and speak to the physical therapist. Even though we have seen that particular type of injury, I can't tell you how many times in our 23-year history. We haven't seen this one, and it could be a little different. And we love speaking to those professionals to give us their take on what was going on here. Maybe if there's anything particular we need to know about this. I take pen in hand and feverishly take notes from them. Don't argue with them about their advice on that. With stroke victims, I signed one this week, as a matter of fact, plenty of stroke victims, and there have been neurologists that we have consulted, and they've graciously given of their time and talked to. I've had some on my radio show and my podcast, talking to them about what's going on here, learning more about something they know far more about than we do, obviously. So I seek their counsel often. What I don't ask them is, how do you do my job? how does this affect the physiology of it? That's what we do. That's what an exercise physiologist, kinesiologist, a sport medicine, a person with a sport medicine degree, or an athletic trainer, or exercise scientist, that's what we do. And it's not what a physician does. It's not what a physician studies. A medical doctor, if you look at their curriculum when they're getting their MD, it has very little or next to no nutrition in it, and it has almost non-existent as far as exercise is concerned, as far as the details of exercise are concerned. And so when it gets to recommending, hey, look, I'm your internist, you're coming to see me, you've got some problems, I noticed that your body fat's high, you're overweight, I recommend that you need to start exercising on a regular basis. That absolutely more than within their wheelhouse. As you've heard me talk about this before, my wife was a pharmaceutical rep for 15 years. I used to go to their talks all the time when talking about different drugs. She represented a cholesterol drug, also represented a osteoporosis drug, which I was a big fan of. And every time I went to these talks, first answer to all of the problems associated with why somebody would take that drug, there was also a blood pressure drug she repped, the number one answer was always diet and exercise. I always got kind of excited about that because that's my field. And they would say that. They would say, diet, your first treatment on this is diet and exercise. And that's in a physician's territory. And I'm overly thankful that they recommend this, whether they send their patients to me or not. I'm overjoyed that they recommend that. It's when they get into the details of that is when we get in trouble. And the reason being is they don't study the details. This is not in their wheelhouse. This is not in their education. The one that's got me so upset today happens to come from the Today Show. This is an online article I saw. I don't think this was actually a segment on TV, but it was an online article, and I read it, and it caught my eye because of the title of it. Plastic surgeon warns this one type of exercise, I hate this, ages your face faster. So if you're a fan of the show, if that catches my eye, I'm going to read it. I've got to dive headfirst into this. This is Dr. Gerald Ember. He put it out there in one of the mediums in highest regard as far as medical information, and that is, yes, of course, the TikTok video. This TikTok video has been viewed 3 million times. And what he says is, from the article, it's a quote from him, "Have you ever seen a long-distance runner, long-time runner that didn't have a gaunt, old face?" Dr. Gerald Ember just answered you, yes. As a matter of fact, I've seen many of them that don't have a gaunt, old face. So we're talking, obviously, we've done an observational, quote-unquote, study. I'm using the air quotes on that one because, I don't think we can put study along with this, but it was all observational. He asked this in this TikTok video that's been viewed, like I said, over 3 million times. That's what happens, he continues, calling it his pet peeve. Listen to this next line. This is brilliant. And remember, this is coming from a plastic surgeon, all right? A plastic surgeon. Nip and tuck, hey, that's your territory, pal. This certainly isn't. Your knees go, your ankles go, your back goes, and it's kind of dumb. Brilliant. Just amazing. A plastic surgeon talking about orthopedic issues that he says that he is basically implying automatically happen. Your knees go, your ankle goes, your back goes, and it's kind of dumb. Therefore, right there in that brilliant statement, Dr. Ember, you've stated that nobody past a certain number on the calendar obviously runs. And the reason I say that is, look what you're saying, Doc. Your knees go, your ankles go, your back goes, and it's kind of dumb. I'm sorry to get real deep into the scientific terminology there with the ultimate description of it's kind of dumb. I could go on for days about your knees go, your ankles go, and your back goes. Completely wrong. You can make that happen, but completely wrong. And I'll get back to that in a minute. He says what he claims is happening. He talks about if you watch an old movie of a slow, like a romantic movie, and two people are running towards each other and they usually slow it down, you can see their face moving. And so by the fact that their face is moving, this is bouncing, it's destroying the elasticity in the skin, and therefore you are ultimately going to end up with a gaunt, old face because of running. This is absurd. This is more than absurd. And I'll also point out that it's not so much what he's saying. Well, it is a lot of, obviously, what he's saying. But you have to understand what the general public understands. Goes back to what I said a minute ago. The upper echelon, the top of the food chain in the health and fitness field, or health and wellness field, health, fitness, and nutrition, health field, period, is an MD. And I don't doubt that as far as education is concerned. Absolutely. The trick is they don't know all facets of health and fitness and nutrition. They don't even study That's the key. They don't study all facets of health, fitness, and nutrition. Let me give you an analogy. I would say that I've done a little bit of construction involvement in that I've had some buildings renovated, I've had stuff built, and dealt with contractors, and different subs of contractors. And I would have to say that the upper echelon, the top of the food chain, when it comes to construction, is going to be either like an architect or a contractor, somewhere at the top. Why? Because they have a hand in all aspects of the process. An architect designs pretty much everything, all the way down to, from what I understand, into the plumbing and all aspects of it. So they have a general understanding of it all. That makes sense. A contractor has a general understanding of plumbing, of carpentry, roofing. He has to have she has to have an understanding of all aspects of it. But when it comes to actually doing the plumbing, they turn it over to a plumber. Plumber actually does all of it. And when you have a plumbing problem, you contact a plumber. You don't say, I'm going to bypass the plumber. I'm going to go to the top guy in the field and call a contractor. That's not who you call. That's not who you contact. That's not whose advice you're looking for. That's not whose knowledge you're looking for, because a contractor is not going to study the intricacies of a plumbing problem. Well, back to our field. A physician is going to have a very, very general knowledge about exercise. And I hate to tell you this, even less about nutrition. They know that nutrition plays a big part, but they have a very, very limited knowledge, unless they've done a lot of reading on their own. They're going to have a very limited knowledge about nutrition. And so when they get into talking about a specific exercise, and this is how it's affecting the body, the general public thinks that a physician knows about all these things, that knows about all these details. And I have to say that largely, and again, making an admission on my own, because I don't know of a clinical study that's been done on this, where they've actually dove deep into the general public's understanding of health, fitness, and wellness. The medical community is not doing a whole lot to stamp out the fact that, hey, don't ask your doctor about exercise. Ask somebody in the exercise field. Ask somebody that's got a degree in the field. Don't ask your doctor about nutrition. Talk to a dietitian. A registered dietitian, not a weekend certified, I'm going to call myself a nutritionist. You don't hear that very much. You don't see that done very much. They're not doing a lot to stop this general understanding that the public has, that the medical field, the MDs and DOs of the world, don't study these things. And so when that happens, you get these kinds of articles and TikTok videos. And so what happens? Why is that so dangerous? And the reason I say this is I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody headed down the right road, going to do the right thing as far as exercise is concerned, and then they talk to, and this is an exact example, a radiologist who tells them, no, you ought to do this exercise. And I have a client come back and want to argue with me because now a doctor has told them to do something different. And in many times, it's with disastrous effects. And it's because they're speaking on something they know nothing about. And this person's talking, this is exactly what's happening here. The point that he makes is that when you run, according to him, all runners lose body fat everywhere. Now, that's true as far as when you do go to losing body fat, you can't spot reduce, and you do lose it all over. And I understand what he's saying about runners that have kind of a gaunt look. And I get it. Not all of them. And they don't have it just because they run. And they don't end up with this quote-unquote gaunt, old-looking face because they run. It happens because they run and they're not doing everything else to maintain the muscles, to keep not only from losing the body fat, but which is fine to lose that, but to maintain the muscles there. So what is happening, Dr. Ember, is that not only are they losing body fat, but they're not maintaining the muscle. When they're doing running and nothing but running and not eating in order to maintain the calories you needed to provide the energy for running, then your body starts to cannibalize muscle. This is why runners not only end up with that kind of look, this is why you have runners, not all runners, but why you have runners that end up with knee damage, end up with back damage, end up with ankle problems. And that's because they're not doing what is needed to do, the resistance training that you need to do, and most importantly, the nutrition that they need, maintaining the protein, maintaining the calories that they need in order to maintain those muscles. So, Dr. Ember, the plastic surgeon giving orthopedic observations here, that's why you end up with damaged knees. It's because you're not doing the things. There's muscles, there's a quadricep, there's a hamstring, there's hip girdle muscles that are there to protect those joints. And if you choose to do, and he's talking about extreme running. I will say he didn't say all runners. He just said he mainly was pushing people that do extensive amount of running or marathon runners or what have you. If you're going to do that, well, then you do all the aspects for it. You train for it. You eat for it. No different than any other athlete. I wouldn't expect a lineman that chooses to be a vegetarian Not that there's anything against being a vegetarian, and doesn't take in the supplements that he needs that has animal-based protein in those supplements and the amount of calories they need in order to maintain the size they need to block another lineman, I don't expect that they're ever going to be successful. If they're going to be a lineman, they're going to eat for it. They're going to train for it. They're going to do the right exercise for it to get them ready for that type of activity. A runner that doesn't want to have as Dr. Ember says, that gaunt old face, then they're going to eat for it. They're going to train for it. They're going to make sure they maintain that muscle and make sure their body is not cannibalizing the muscles that actually keep you looking young, Dr. Ember, that keep you looking fit. I'll tell you, he does clarify, actually, I'm not sure it's Dr. Ember, and there's also somebody that quote-unquote backs him up. I'm probably trying to find out my notes here. Boris Paskover of the New Jersey Medical School. They mentioned that this happens to a lot of runners, but it doesn't happen to all runners because people are just different, and they stop there. Well, why are they different? This one has the gene that person won't get a gaunt face no matter how much they run. No, it has nothing to do with that. It goes back to that ridiculous analogy that you made or ridiculous statement you made in here about causing an aging in the face. Well, doctor, if you get a chance to listen to some of my earlier podcasts, the one I do on the live aging, you'll find out what actually causes what we associate with time passing on a calendar, which is all aging is. It is time passing on a calendar. The reason we end up with a gaunt look or these kind of things is because of deliberate action on our part. You would argue it's just running. Well, if you're going to do the deliberate action of a lot of running, then you're going to do deliberate action that affect the other three different activities, well, actually all four of the activities that control whether or not we deteriorate, which is what you're talking about. You call it aging, which I think is absurd. The time passing on a calendar causes that. It doesn't. If you listen to Live Age, you'll know that time passing on a calendar does not cause deterioration. What does cause deterioration is activity or fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and the most important, and this is the one he's really monkeying with the general public, and that is mindset. So if you're going to do that kind of activity, then you eat for that activity, and you won't cause these things. And I promise you, there are plenty of runners out there that don't have this, that have a large number on the calendar that don't have this gaunt look on their face. They're destroying their face because they're running a lot. And that is also why some people have it and some people don't. It's not just the magic luck of the draw. It's because they're actually doing the right things to train for that sport. I will agree with them. I'll agree with him that a lot of people don't do those things. And so you're deliberately going to cause these actions, but it's a direct cause and effect. It's not just, well, that activity causes it to everybody. No, it doesn't. You need to study a little bit more and you'll realize that. If you knew anything about exercise, if you knew anything about nutrition, you would understand that you can avoid those things. I know it's just one quick line that he does about, your knees go, your ankles go, and your back goes. But you got to understand with the general public thinking and the Medical Association doing nothing to dissuade their thoughts on this, thinking that a doctor knows everything about health and wellness. When you say something like that, people are going to take it to heart as if you knew what you were talking about. And I'm telling you right now, you don't. You don't. And so when you make a flippant comment that their knees go and their ankles go and their back goes, they're going to hear it from a quote-unquote doctor. So some people are going to believe that. And you're going to dissuade people from exercise. That is exactly what you're going to do. Especially a lot of people that are runners, they do it not just for their exercise. They do it for their head. It's for mental wellness. It's the way they deal with stress. Stress is nothing more than fight or flight. And it's the same fight or flight that we had when we were cavemen. And so that's how they're dealing with it. That's how they get through their day. That's how they're mitigating the stress. It's their level of wellness. It keeps them happy. It keeps them alive. It keeps them living longer, which is why physicians recommend exercise. Now, don't want to cut him off. They go into something which I'm sure the reporter asked him, which again, I think this is absurd, but he did recommend exercise. Why? Because the reporter asked him at some point in time, well, doctor, plastic surgeon, what do you recommend for exercise? Oh my, that is absurd. That is absolutely absurd. That's no different than, well, Mr. Plumber, since you don't think that using these kind of studs is a good idea, what studs do you recommend? Never mind, there's a carpenter out there I could ask. I mean, what would they know? That's the exact same thing. That's exactly what's happening here. And it makes me so mad because instead of actually looking at, okay, we've got people that like to run, and running is a good thing. Running is a good activity. It completes people. I mean, obviously, hopefully you know the benefits of an activity for running. Not for everybody. Definitely not for everybody. I run myself because I'm a multisport athlete. I cycle also. My favorite is swimming. Love swimming. Do I recommend it for everybody? No, not for everybody. But if you're going to do that, unbeknownst to the doctor here, there are ways to keep that from happening. We have a client right now, and I hope she didn't mind me saying this. She happens to be participating in Tokyo in a marathon right now. And she's, I'm not letting a cat out of the bag. She's not a spring chicken. And she's been doing this a long time. When she first came to us, she came to us because she wanted to continue running, and she noticed some problems she was having. Well, she went to, didn't go to a plastic surgeon. Don't know why. Being facetious, of course. She didn't go to a plastic surgeon. She went to an exercise physiologist, and that exercise physiologist was smart enough to also turn them over to an athletic trainer, somebody that works in rehab. And we found out the problems that were going on with her, and this was years ago. And so what we did is we started to mitigate that, make the right recommendations with nutrition, make the right recommendations for exercise so that she can maintain the muscles that are there to keep these things from happening. And what did that result in? Well, she completed a marathon in every single state, many of them multiple times. Now she's into, and I don't want to insult her, she may be in higher than this, but in her hundreds of marathons. And she will keep going. And she should keep going because you can keep going. There's no reason you can't, no matter what a plastic surgeon tells you. Folks, be very careful about what a certified and degreed personal trainer tells you about your internal medicine. Be very careful what a degreed and certified personal trainer that's been training for 32 years, that has the most successful personal training facility in the Southeast, says to you about plastic surgery. Understand that may be their opinion, but they're not the authority on it. In the same vein, be very careful what health information you're getting from which professional. What information about carpentry, I'm not going to go to the contractor. I'm going to go to the carpenter. When I want information about plumbing, I'm going to go to the plumber. When I want information about internal medicine, I'm going to go to an internal medicine specialist like my brother, or I would have gone to a gastroenterologist like my father. But when it comes to exercise, the smarter people in the general public, as well as the medical professionals, will go to an exercise physiologist. If they want information about nutrition, they're going to go to a dietitian. By seeking out the right advice from the right expertise, I promise you can easily reach your level of wellness.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.